Yeah, I think this is great. The other thing I'll share, I know we're almost out of time over here, is I was talking to Lester when we first joined on this panel. Is I'm going to talk to George Finney, who is the CISO at Southern Methodist University next week. So they just put out something which I found fascinating. Again, Deb, to your point, they had this thing about use BJ Fogg's habits and use that. And I give this. I'm still halfway through that, but one of the examples he gave was if you have a Windows machine, is the cue, the behavior, and the reward. And the cue is you push your chair back. The behavior is hit Control Alt Del, and the reward, you can reward yourself with anything, right? So the point was leaving your desk and locking your terminal or computer before you walk out, right? And he has some really, really cool examples of how do you kind of make this part of your psyche so that at that point you're not even thinking about, hey, is the phishing link or not? You're going to, there's a behavior tied to seeing a email from an unknown source, and then you reward yourself at the end. So that becomes kind of a closed loop positive cycle. So I found that fascinating. So any final words? I know we're going to do this on a monthly basis, but I just want to kind of open it up for any final thoughts.
Well,
So,
go ahead, Lester.
oh, I'm sorry. So just real quick, I think this applies to all sectors, but I think it tends to be a little bit more prevalent, especially with K through 12 and smaller educational institutions, especially like with Diana saying, a lot of these organizations don't have security officers dedicated. So if you happen to be in that unenviable position of being responsible for everything that has electricity in it, my recommendation to you would be just start off small. If you could do an assessment, great. So at least you have a more educated understanding of what the playing field looks like. But even if you can't do that, don't get so wrapped up in trying to figure out everything up front before you take action that you never take action. Start somewhere, keep track of what you're doing, check that box off once you're done with the user education or your newsletter that goes out once a month, then move on to the next thing, or whatever the case is in terms of once you've gotten some basic vulnerability scanning going on a regular basis, check that box off, do the next thing. So you just have to remind yourself, yeah, there's no way I can secure my organization 100%, but anything I do is going to be a net positive and move the organization forward. So.
Yeah, and I would add to that what Lester had said about don't confuse with your, especially with your students, don't confuse tech savvy with actually being security, privacy, or even mechanics savvy. It's not uncommon to hear these kids, they know so much about it, they can't, and I mean, I remember, especially with teenagers, right, you're kind of like, I know this stuff, but yes, they know how to use their mobile devices, and they certainly know how to use the apps on those devices to get out and get influence and to connect with each other, but that's not the same as understanding the security implications, the privacy implications, or even how the technology works, as Mike and Daniel were saying about, like their kids saying, well, what do you do, right? Like, do you drink coffee in the day? So they are very tech savvy on one hand, but they're not necessarily, and most of them aren't actually security, privacy savvy. So understanding there's a difference, and as you're speaking with them, making sure that you separate that out. And I think it was Mike that said this, but I absolutely love that. Yeah, remember that anybody, when you're a child, anybody who's like 6 years older than you is an adult, and they're so old, right? Even a couple of years, if you're young enough, feels like, ooh, they're so much more mature and they know so much. So yeah, look for those champions within, like Deb was talking about, look for those champions. And then someone who's 2 years older than the next group, they might be your very best teachers and security awareness trainers for that cohort.
Awesome.
Great concepts. I would just add one more thing too. Building on that idea, if you don't have the budget to fix some of the things with commercial products, and you don't have the budget to hire the people, this doesn't work with kindergarten, but when you're up in high school, college territory, deputize students and leverage open source. If you can't afford that big shiny commercial firewall, pfSense and Suricata on some old hardware you scrape together, assembled by some students, will get you at least part of the way. It'll get you going.
That's good. Two wrap-up things. One, I think it's important to note that my kids knew to ask about coffee. Just want to call that out. They know that that's an important part of the day. But I think the one thing too, I think this ties in with kind of summing up what the three of you said. As we look to future aspects, or if we start thinking about what's going to change and what do we have to anticipate, or what are we going to do about that, whatever we do today needs to stay somewhat flexible, right? The kids coming into the companies will change. We have to educate them differently. The assessment standards that we're following today are going to change, and we're going to have to do something different tomorrow. And so just don't have to be super prepared, but always thinking about what that change might be or what we might have to do. And to me, that comes down to how interested am I in long-term contracts? How interested am I in complicated, overly burdensome installations or expensive startup costs and configurations that I have to go through to just get something working right? And the easier we can get something in and out, it's going to be more topical to the risks that we're trying to address.
That balance of flexibility has to be also including openness in especially the higher education, because they expect access to the applications that they use on a daily basis through their campus programs. So I know that's been an ongoing issue. And as we have more social media and more types of group applications that these young folks like, the gaming and everything else, I'm sure that's also a continuous challenge for you, especially at the higher ed level.
True. So again, thank you, everybody. Thanks, Daniel. Thanks, Diana. Thanks, Mike. Thanks, Lester. And thanks, Deb, for joining us, and looking forward to future dialogue.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.